This is the Barbados Today afternoon news for Monday, September 11. Thank you for joining us. I am Marie-Claire Williams. As students return to the classroom today for the start of the new school year, at least one secondary institution is hoping for a relatively incident-free year. Combermere School was plagued by environmental challenges last year that forced its temporary closure. New principal Vincent Ferguson says those concerns have been addressed, and while there may be other challenges this year, he's looking forward to a smoother academic year.
Combermere had its issues last year. We have done all in our powers to resolve those issues. We are not perfect beings, so something could flare in the future, but we have improved almost every possible area that could be problematic.
Ferguson transferred to Combermere from Alma Paris, which was shut this past year. He shared his vision for the secondary school with Barbados Today.
Combermere is still the school of choice of Barbados, no doubt about it. Most of the students up at the common interest level to attend the conference. My vision is to build on that legacy that the Combermere has. It was rocked a bit because of subterraneous challenges last year and the year before. There are some issues with staff morale that can easily be worked on. But the emphasis is going to be on the students, good relations with the teachers, a good relation with the parents. Outcome is going to be high.
And while Combermere is hoping for an incident-free school year, the president of the Barbados Secondary Teachers Union, Mary Redmond, is raising concern over the current spate of gun violence. Speaking ahead of this morning's start of the new academic year, Redmond said she is worried that the trend will enter the school system. She also called for the Ministry of Education to deliver on a promise to form a special committee to address the issue of violence in schools.
It is going on 2 years now that we were told that there was going to be a special committee set up to look at violence in schools. And we have been waiting for that committee to be set up. Nothing yet. And in the meantime, we have a society now in which there is so much gunplay and other forms of violence, and we know that what happens at the wider society not so long afterwards finds itself within the classrooms and the school environment. And so it is a matter of concern for us, of grave concern, because as I said, you don't just have to protect yourself, but you have to try and protect all of the little ones.
Meanwhile, the Barbados Union of Teachers is worried about the issue of discipline at schools.
What is lacking in the schools seem to be breeding or putting out into society what we do not want. And the concern that members have certainly would be discipline and what approaches or what methodologies can be used, because we have been hearing over the last 8 or so years what not to do in terms of disciplining the children, but we have not been told by the ministry what we can do as teachers to discipline the children. And I believe that a lack of discipline being enforced in schools, and we have always preached, talked about the lack of religious and moral education being taught, or the level of it.
BUT President Pedro Shepherd added that his members are ready for the new school year, despite reports that 3 more schools will not reopen this morning as scheduled due to ongoing repair works. In other news this afternoon, opposition MP Edmund Hinkson is hitting back at the governing Democratic Labour Party's move to pass a resolution to probe opposition leader Mia Mottley's qualification to practice law in Barbados. Hinkson was addressing a BLP Women's League meeting at the party's Roebuck Street headquarters last evening.
I can't believe that a governing party will spend its time on a Sunday afternoon passing a resolution that somebody who qualified 30 years ago, all right, who had testimonials and reference letters from the then Prime Minister of Barbados, the Right Excellent Errol Barrow, all right, himself a top lawyer, unlike the present Attorney General, who had testimonial and reference from Sir Henry Ford, one of the longest serving parliamentarians in the Parliament of Barbados, one of the leading lawyers in the Caribbean, and that you now can spend a Sunday afternoon passing some foolish resolution that you will now write the Attorney General for him to take it to court, that you gotta have some legal certificate. Well, inmates at that time, that was allowed. How she came through. There's a judge, someone who had been a judge for 15 years, who came through the same way. So what are they going to say? That all the decisions of that judge are null and void? That everybody who in Glenderry sentenced by that judge should be released now?
Thank you for staying with us. We're back with news from the region. And the Premier of the British Virgin Islands, Dr. Orlando Smith, says the British territory will need a comprehensive economic package to aid rebuilding efforts following the passage of Hurricane Irma. Smith says he is heartbroken by the loss of life as well as that of homes and businesses. The BVI and several other territories in the Northern Caribbean were hit by the Category 5 hurricane last week. The French President Emmanuel Macron is due to visit St. Martin tomorrow. And finally, Hurricane Irma flooded several cities in northern Florida, and a huge storm surged today as it headed out of the state after cutting power to millions of residents. Irma was ranked as one of the most powerful hurricanes recorded in the Atlantic. It first made landfall in the Florida Keys before heading to Naples and up the west coast. We get more in this Reuters report.
Hurricane Irma unleashing its full fury on Florida Sunday, lashing the state's Gulf Coast with winds of up to 130 miles per hour and sending floodwaters rushing into downtown Miami. The massive storm toppling trees, dumping torrential rain, and snapping power lines, leaving more than 2.5 million homes and businesses without power. In usually bustling Miami, residents who hadn't fled the city hunkered down as water rushed in among luxury high-rises and 2 construction cranes collapsed. After barreling across the Florida Keys Sunday morning as a Category 4, Irma crept up the western shore of the Florida peninsula, making a second landfall at Marco Island, near the resort town of Naples. The storm downgraded but leaving its mark throughout the state. Up north, the powerful forces of Irma pulled the water in Tampa Bay out to sea, leaving mud and sand. The storm, which forced the biggest evacuation in Florida's history, has killed at least 28 people since it began its rampage in the Caribbean. On Sunday, Irma claimed its first U.S. fatality, a man found dead in a pickup truck that had crashed into a tree in high winds in the Keys.
And that's news this afternoon. Remember, there's more on our website, www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, and like us on Facebook. We're on Izumi Media in bus terminals and Screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. You can also tune in to Mix 96.9 FM. I am Marie Claire Williams. Good afternoon.